What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Hobby Hotline. Now, I think in the title it says episode 33. This is much higher than that. I think it's probably episode 330. If I had to guess, 338, maybe 339. I know I was on last week. I probably should remember the number that I said last week. But, when you're in the hobby, sometimes it's easy to forget short-term memory at times. I am here as the host here on Hobby Hotline on For Collectors with Alex and Samuel. First for you, Alex, how you doing? What you been up to this week?
Been doing good. Trying to stay warm. You know that cold front is still coming through. We got a little bit more last night and everything, but just enjoying everything from. I've been consuming a lot of footage from Super Bowl and Radio Row over there and stuff, and getting a lot of FOMO. Wish I was there, incorporated in it, because people are doing a lot of stuff with athletes and celebrities, and I love seeing that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Samuel, basically same question. What you been up to this week?
This week I just been being a middle school principal, man. Working on some like individual like cardboard content stuff, just to stay rooted and creating stuff, and also been writing some curriculum for our youth collector initiative for the national. So I've been in like just doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff and not all of front facing stuff at shows like I normally do. So
yeah, nice. Shout out to
and being a dad and coaching my daughter in basketball. She had a game today and scored 20 points. So
hell yeah, nice. That's shout out. Maybe we'll get some sports cards of her eventually.
Got her first and one in the game.
Yeah, get her fun. On a nice. Yeah. Get her on the Panini NIL card early on. See if they see how they do a lot of like high school players. See if they do even at your daughter's age potentially.
She's only in the third grade, so she got a long way to go.
Yeah. The first third grade NIL. Think about it. Something to think about. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We got of course Mad City Brew. We got Philly Joe in the chat. We got Howdy from Tucson. I always love seeing that. We got Foul Ball in the chat as well. One of my biggest fans. We are here on Saturday. I think we'll be back next Saturday as well. I don't think I'll be hosting. I hosted 2 Saturdays in a row here, but in the Hobby Hotline group chat that we have on Instagram, John was out at a show and he was kind of talking about some of the overcrowdedness. And then I believe Clemente Sports Cards also mentioned this as a topic. And, I don't really necessarily have as much experience going to these shows. I know, Alex, you are a pretty frequent in a frequent attendance of a lot of sports card shows. And is this something that you have seen, like the overcrowdedness and the inability for some collectors to get in? I mean, that was one of the issues that we were kind of talking about in the chat. I wanted to see from your perspective, is this something that you're seeing? What are your thoughts on that?
But before I talk about that, what have you been doing this week? You asked us, but you didn't say what you've been doing this week. What
have I been doing this week? I just downloaded FIFA, so I've been playing career mode in FIFA. I took Sultan Town. I'm starting a career mode with Sultan Town, and I made it to the Champions Division, or the Champions. Was the second division essentially in the English Premier League. That's one of the things, and then just creating content, stuff like that. So it's cool. Oh, and then bowling. I guess I do play in a bowling league. I got a new ball over in December, so that's been fun to try and figure out. And then we got the Super Bowl coming up, which we'll get into a little bit. So just kind of been stressing watching all of the potential Drake May injury updates. That's what some of the stuff I've been doing this week.
Ooh. But yeah, back to your question. Man, I'm wearing this shirt for a reason. I was just up in Fishtown, up in Samuel's area for this last weekend, and it went a little viral. Didn't go too crazy, but the venue they were in, they're at Rivers Casino in downtown Philly, and the actual venue said you can't let any more people in. We ran out of parking spots at the show. Like the whole casino lot was completely filled, including their parking structure. Now, to the point of they completely didn't plow one lot, so there was less spots there. That's on their part, but you can't fault. People were faulting the show, the Brett, the promoter, and stuff. I'm like, that's a casino. Like there's nothing. You can't force them to go plow another lot and everything. But He worked it out, so it was kind of like almost a one in, one out type of situation, but he was still letting people in, even though they were just like, hey, you guys are at capacity. And it was crowded in there. I mean, it was really crowded. Of course, people have their backpacks and strollers and everything else. That doesn't help either. But the vendors loved it. I mean, people were buying out full tables. Vibes were extremely high. And it wasn't just there, right? John, shout out to him. He was posting, pictures saying it was one of the best shows he's ever had. A few weeks ago in Dallas had record numbers. Everyone was talking about that. I have been adamant about January, right after, the holidays. Everyone's coming out of not being and going to card shows for a little over a month, maybe have some extra spending money, maybe have some cards that they got for Christmas, no want to trade and everything else like that. Is one of the best months around the country to go to shows. I've been to a couple already this year in this month, and they were all, I would say, record numbers of just the amount of people coming out. So you add that, you also add the fact that we had a huge storm. We had a huge storm come through almost all the United States, and maybe that affected it too. Maybe, people the weekend prior couldn't get out and do anything, and they were just cooped up a little bit more. So that made this past weekend just even more, crazy. But it's great seeing that many people, being included in this industry, in this hobby. And if there's anyone in the chat that had the same type of situations, I'd like to hear it from like where you were at and everything else. Like this is the stuff that we strive to see and love, like, going to these shows and seeing so many people there just enjoying themselves.
Yeah, Samuel, I know you were talking about one of the shows kind of near Philly. Have you had a similar experience of maybe not being able to get in, or just being like overcrowded potentially?
So being the local guy, I would say like Fishtown is probably like in the Philly, like Jersey area, Delaware area is probably one of the better like local shows. I won't call it quite a regional show, even though they are in like 2 different states, and I think they do a Delaware show. I'm not sure, but it's a top tier show to be at. I often go to the Rivers Casino one, which is not downtown Philadelphia, Alex. It's in Fishtown. It's near Port Richmond. That's not quite downtown, but
it's like a few blocks away. Like it's not.
Nah, it's not. It's not. No. It's not downtown. We got to get it right. But no, it's in a nice area. It's an area that has been changing, over the past 20 years. They're doing a lot there. But the Fishtown show, especially the Rivers one, is a good show. They do the Cherry Hill show. And it's a popular show. And it's a show that, on any given Saturday and Sunday, it can be crowded there. There's times I didn't go on Saturday and I went on Sunday and it was crowded. So it's a great show, good atmosphere. I know a lot of the card vendors who set up there, a lot of local hobby stores who set tables up there. It's a good show. It's a happening show. It's a community-centered show. And it's also a show where I see a ton of kids like hustling and bustling and selling cards. So it's a wide range of collectors, and you get that nice bridge of like young around my age and older than me. So I would say shows like that, from my experience of going to the Fishtown show, it's a show when it's a line like that, it's excitement for me, because it lets me know the hobby is in a good place. 2, people are still collecting, people are still searching for those PC cards, and people are still coming out to shows to find their cards, but also just have that human experience, that human connection, with their fellow collectors. Because, some of my fondest moments of when I made my return to the hobby, when I got back into shows, happened at the Fishtown show. Just as a nobody walking through there and having the opportunity to now know a lot of people. So I wouldn't say don't be discouraged by it. Look at it as excitement, because the great thing is there's been times when that show has been crowded and people set up their own little spots in the lobby area when they're just sitting on the floor around their cards and everything. So You can't do that quite during the wintertime because the floor would be a little messed up. But, for some of their like summer and springtime shows, I've seen it, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's a show that you can have the hobby anywhere. So no, salute to the show promoters and the Fishtown show. And I'm glad, and the Cherry Hill show, I'm glad that it's thriving.
I got to quickly, salute the veterans in the chat. Steel City saying he's Marine. Confidence Sports Cards. You got Marines, Air Force, Army. Got everything in here. I love seeing this. I seriously love it as a veteran myself, and I'm bringing that. Trying to bring more positivity to veterans in the industry and hobby. Like I love seeing that.
Yeah. Also, too, shout out to Laura. She gave my daughter a good compliment. I appreciate that. I'll let her know. She played real well today. Had a couple of blocks, some good rebounds, got our first and one, and made the free throw. So, nice. I had to stay a coach, but it was also like in my heart, I was like, yes. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, shout out to the chat. So a question I like asking is, where is everybody watching the show from? I think it's interesting to see where people are watching in the United States. I know we have people from outside the United States maybe tuning in to a different time zone. People waking up early, grabbing their coffee, turning on Hobby Hotline. I always love seeing those types of comments. And, I think the things that you guys are saying about these shows, I think is definitely correct. And I think too, with these shows, like it's a great opportunity. Like if you're saying kids are at the show, I think it's a great opportunity for kids to kind of learn a social interaction with, and social interaction with a business aspect to it. Like, kids during school, they have that social interaction, but I think outside of that, it can, they have time with their friends, but, meeting new people and interacting with, I guess adults in a way, like with some of the dealers, like I think those are all great interactions for kids. And I mean, even adults too, like we have become such a online culture, like everything is online nowadays. So it's like, I think I was listening to, maybe it was The Hobby with Cage, one of his podcasts he put out this week. And he was talking about how at the National, they should put like name badges on or you should be able to put your name badge or something on your national ticket, because like you walk by people and you may talk to them all the time and you don't even realize it because they're talking between Instagram accounts. So I think these are some of the great things. Yeah. These are some of the great things that shows within the hobby allow people to do, and phenomenal work from all the show hosts. And even if you have to turn people away, like you said, I think that's another good indicator, because again, we see all of the $1 million sales and $100,000 sales and all of those things, and those things obviously help the industry and they help sort of the health. But I think overall, the amount of people going to shows, ultimately, those are the people who are willing to spend money that's actually like a realistic number. The millionaires and billionaires are not necessarily, maybe Michael Rubin's going to some shows, but I don't think that they're perusing shows and going through dollar bins, but so those are all, great things, I think.
And Adam, to your point, one thing I need to highlight about the Fishtown show and the Cherry Hill show, like, it has a booming TCG, set up, especially the Cherry Hill show, where they devote space for TCG and like non-sports cards. But another thing I want to highlight too, like the card selection that is at the Fishtown show, it rivals, and I love the Philly show, but at times it has rivaled that in terms of like the types of cards that you're seeing there. And you get that wide range of, from modern, ultra modern to like junk wax and vintage, and like older than vintage, because, I think back to I want to say it was 2023, I found some of my Grail cards at the Fishtown show. And I'm talking about, Richie Ashburn's rookie card, Arestas Manosa's rookie card. So, great cards in there, and it's something for everybody. And you could get your money's worth there.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to, I think it was there was I live on Cape Cod, and there was the one in Hyannis. Anybody Massachusetts people know the Hyannis Cape Cod card show. And I mean, I was going through dollar bins the whole time. For me, that was what was most fun. It was most fun to see these like random cards that like of players where I go, oh, that player is so awesome. I completely forgot about that player. So, you know, at these shows, you have so much opportunity to do that, or you have opportunity to buy $100 cards or $1,000 cards. And, you know, I'm not going to say the Nationals coming up necessarily. It's probably still 6 or 7 months away, but we are leading up to I don't know, a very exciting year again in Chicago. You know, people are getting excited. Another thing that people are definitely getting excited for is the big game coming up tomorrow now. And I talked about this a little bit on last week's show. I'm going to try to keep my thoughts, I guess, a little bit different from what I said last week.
Before we get to the Super Bowl, though, let's talk about Foul Ball said in the chat. Next weekend, you know, the West Coast Card Show. So West Coast Card Show is one of the biggest shows that's on the West Coast, right? You know, get out there and, you know, these shows are booming. Go find those shows. Go search and see what's close to you and everything. Use the avenues that you have out there to search and everything to find. The West Coast Card Show out there, I've been to it a couple times now, and they only have it a couple times a year. It's incredible, right? It was hard for people to travel from the West Coast to the East Coast, but these type of shows are supposed to be regional shows. Dallas is supposed to be regional, Philly show regional, even the Chicago Sports Spectacular is supposed to be regional shows for that area. So what do they have out west? It's the West Coast Car Show. Great individuals run it, and I just want to, you know, tying it all together, these shows are booming still. Go out and find one maybe not this weekend because it's almost over, but next weekend after that, just keep it going and go out there and support your local shows.
So Adam, I got to shout you out because I got some New England connections too. I went to Endicott in Boston. So,
nice.
You know, currently my basketball team, you know, where I played, they're ranked 15th in the country and Division III. So, you know, shout out to my New England family.
I feel like, so I went to LaSalle University, which was college back then. So I don't know if we played each other, but I know that was also D3. But so it's definitely good. And so if you are also looking to get out to any shows, I'm just going to share a good, in my opinion, probably one of the best resources for show information is going to be on Sports Collectors Digest. They have like all of the states that you can go to, and then they have a pretty updated list. I mean, anytime you check, you can see that a lot of these dates are still coming up. So like February 7th, that's, you know, today, I guess, if you're in Alabama, or if you are in, let's go to Massachusetts, for example, and just see if, I'm sure there's probably like some sort of the Medford show these already happened, but like there's, you know, Rockland, there's tons of stuff. So if you are looking to get out to shows, like I said, baseball, it's Sports Collectors Digest. If you just Sports Collectors Digest and then, you know, sports card shows near me, you'll be able to find it that way. And somebody actually said in the chat that I'm pulling for Sam Darnold because we both have a mustache. If anything, I would be pulling for Sam Darnold because he has red hair. Let's be honest. Like the mustache, he's got more of a beard. I can't really grow that beard, unfortunately. The mustache helps, but and obviously, you know, Patriots fan here. So unfortunately, not rooting for the Seahawks. I mean, rooting for the Patriots, obviously. I'll get your guys' thoughts. Let me just pull up the graphic here. We've got, you know, I think it's an exciting game. I mean, I think the spread right now is 4.5. So maybe Vegas doesn't think it's going to be as close as maybe other games. But you know, Alex, what do you think? We'll go through Super Bowl just kind of in general, and then we'll get into cards after we kind of go around the table.
All right, I've been talking. You know, this has been a topic of discussion for a few weeks now since, you know, the conference games. I think if you look at the two, I hate saying this in front of a Patriots fan and everything, but compare the two teams just by the players wise, right? The offensive power that the Seahawks have compared to the Patriots, like you can't deny, like the receiving core is better with the Seahawks. I mean, they had the offensive player of the year with Jackson Smith. So what's it going to break down to? So the running back committee, you know, Kenneth Walker, you know, they are without Charbonnet. And so, I mean, when's the last time you heard Cam Akers playing? He's on the Seahawks. He's in the Super Bowl, right? He's stepping up from the practice squad. But I think the running game on the Patriots are just a little bit better because you have Stevenson and Henderson can come in, but he hasn't played that much recently. So then it goes down to defense. This is going to be a defensive game. Both coaches are defensive minded, right? But the thing that's just a little bit better for me that I feel is Vrabel's been there multiple times, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that veteran presence, because both teams with players don't really have a lot of veteran presence that's been in this situation. So I think the coaching is going to come to play, and that's why 4.5 points it's big, but it's not. I think it will be a closer game than people think. I don't know if it's going to be a high scoring game. Everyone loves high scoring games. They don't like defensive type of games. But I'm sitting here with a nice Prism 10 of 25 jersey number of Drake May this year that I just recently pulled. It was actually blue camo jersey number. So I kind of hope the Patriots do win and he wins. So that might give a little bit extra value to that card.
Nice. Samuel, same question here before we get into
cards. I don't have a pony in this race because the Eagles are sitting at home. But let me just paint the scene for you guys. It's 28-24. The Patriots have the ball on the 1 yard line, and they need a touchdown, and they can run the ball in, or they can throw it.
No,
and the same thing that happened in the previous Super Bowl to them happens to this one, and Seattle wins, and they get their lick back after all these years.
I just got a shiver down my spine
of not giving beast mode the ball at the 1 yard line. How ironic would that be?
It's really funny. Just cutting in real quick on DraftKings, you can actually bet that the Seahawks will throw on the 1 yard line for a touchdown pass. It's so funny.
How ironic would that be? And we just see history repeats itself for the other way around. And the reason why I bring that up, I was sitting in a pizza shop the other day, and they had that highlight up there, and I was just thinking, like, man, how different would Russell Wilson's career be had he just handed the ball off to the greatest running back in the world at the time? We're totally different history from everybody. Everybody outlook would be different. Outcomes would be different from Tom Brady on down. But I think it's going to be a fun game, an exciting game. Like I said, I don't have a pony in this race because the Eagles are at home. I do prefer like closer games because they're more exciting. Right. Even the year when the Eagles blew out the Chiefs, I was sitting there like, I'm glad we're winning, but I like those moments when you're at the edge of your seat and it's like, what's the one play that's just going to give that team that deciding edge, and it goes like back and forth. So hopefully it's a good contested game, and the referees don't make it about them.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's all season. That's been my. I haven't played
because we don't want the game. We don't want the game to end on a flag,
right?
In a fourth quarter, and it's like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Like that's watching some of these games this year. The officiating has been, it's been questionable at best, horrible at worst. At worst, the refs are betting on the games. Like that's where sometimes that's all I can see. But so we'll get into cards here. So this is actually going to be the last Super Bowl that Panini will be making licensed football cards. I think that is going to be, we've already seen it with basketball. They took that over in October, and then Topps is taking over the football license in March, I believe. So it's not right after the Super Bowl, but it'll be before the draft. So, Alex, I'll ask you this question. Do you think that there are going to be, like this year's products, for example, do you think that this year's products are going to be ones that people look back at when the shift happens and they say, these are products that you wanted to buy because they were the last Panini products, or will it be, just only up from here now that Topps is taking over the football license?
Since I've been doing this again since about 2008 as an adult, I did a lot of card collecting with my family when I was younger. I got to see the shift before for when Topps lost the license, when Upper Deck lost the license, right over to Panini and everything. And it kind of was the same thing. People were buying boxes, stockpiling, and everything else. And you see how some of those cards prices do today, depending on the players and everything. Like old Chrome, Brady is Brady. His stuff just sells well, anyways. But then you vice versa. The first Panini products how those prices and everything are doing. I think that the shift is, I have mixed feelings, because I saw it before and saw how many products Topps, Upper Deck, and Panini were doing all at once, and everyone's thinking, Fanatics comes in and they're just gonna, they're the best thing in the world. I mean, the Fanatics is, just think about it. Topps, all the baseball products that they have now, they're probably going to turn them same thing in the football products. They're going to, I'm pretty sure they're the way they want to do it is to have the same line across always. And if everyone didn't know back in the day, that's what Topps did with their sets. So the flagship Topps was the same design for baseball, football, basketball. It was the same exact. So they didn't really have to change it up. So it was the same across all the products. And eventually they're going to do the same thing, I imagine, down the road. So this class has a strong class that started off pretty good, with Jackson Dart and Scatterboo. Now they got hurt, so that didn't help. But you have Shadur in there that still gets a lot of love. Tyler Warren, you have all. I mean, even the other rookies, they're on the defensive side.
Scatterboo.
Yeah, you have the defensive side. The one player for the Seahawks that was, I believe he was runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. It all depends on the class. These products depend on the class, right? Because one of the last years of Chrome football for Topps before they lost license, I mean, that was Jameis Winston and all of them, correct?
Mariota, yeah.
That product is cheap. It's a lot cheaper now because of the class wasn't that well. So I think it encompasses everything from the players that are in it, on top of, hey, yeah, maybe this is the last time they're making this licensed stuff. However, do you count, I'll ask you guys, I'm flip it back with a question. Do you think that if they continue the route and do unlicensed stuff, like we're going to discuss hopefully in a little bit about the basketball, will that affect prices too? Because they're still pumping out stuff, right? That's not just, the licensed.
Yeah, I think, like you said, we'll talk about the unlicensed basketball for Panini that was announced this past week. I don't know. I mean, I think it is, the hobby almost feels like it's very prospect dependent at any given moment. Like if you look back at even just the past, since 2020, if you look back at the draft classes and when sports cards were the hottest, 2018 has a crazy draft class, 2019 with Zion at the time. But then you get into, 2022, 2023 the basketball before Wembanyama and then right after it. And it seemed like those draft classes really had a pretty big effect on the overall hobby. Like if you look back at the years of, like I said, the draft classes in general, it looks like when the draft classes were really good, the sports card industry was doing really well. And when the draft classes weren't as good, things in the sports card industry weren't going as well. But, and that's because a lot of the market is run on selling individual cards of the players that are in the new products. So, Samuel, I'll ask you this question. With there being such a draft dependent products, basically just in general, like each year, do you think that Topps going forward is going to try to figure out a way to make that not be the case? Or do you think it's just that is how it is in the sports card industry with the draft class really being a determining factor whether people want to buy the cards or not?
I mean, I think it all boils down to the individual collector. I know we have those like general things of like why we buy stuff. I think the idea of prospecting is never going to die. It all depends on the draft class. So when you look at, I'm not a football collector, so I can't really speak to like the Panini football stuff. But when you look at this current draft class that's going to be coming out potentially, and all the great freshman players that are in college basketball right now, Topps, the world is their oyster. When the kid from Kansas, the kid from BYU, then you got Caleb down in North Carolina, and then you got Boozer. Yeah, so the world is their oyster if they do it right. You know what I mean? And then even in the down years, I think it becomes about those individual inserts. What's the hottest insert? What's the hottest subset? What are those like key parallels or like rare short print cards that we can find even when it's a down like draft class? Even when you go back to the year of Zion, Hold up. I lost my screen. Even when you go back to the year Zion and what happened to him in the aftermath, it became about those hot inserts. Well, Zion's card isn't worth as much now, but what are some of the best inserts and those short print cards that we can find that, we can capitalize off that are rare, the scarcity is low, and, it has a low pop count, and it has a high PSA grade or, Beckett grade. So, I think it depends on the collector, and that's the great thing about the hobby. Everybody has their niche and why they collect. But I think the big general picture, prospecting is the wave. It's the new wave now. Well, as a kid, when I collected, it was all about the longevity and how you played as a player and your stats on the back of the card. And now it's about potential and potentially how good you're going to be.
Well, I've talked about in the past, and I want to hear what you guys think about it. What some of the biggest cards that people talk about that are in the news and everything? Brady's rookie stuff, like contenders, right? Mantle rookie, all the main rookie cards, Jordan's rookie and everything else. So is that aspect of we're constantly talking about, those big rookie cards help bring more, like we need to make these products more rookie focused, because in the long run, these are the cards that should be doing the same thing down the road. The problem that I have with it is in this environment and that we're in these days, no one keeps the cards to wait until they can get 20, 30 years down the road.
It's a quick turnover. It's a flip.
It is. It's those individuals that are like, okay, I think Jackson Dart's going to be the next Tom Brady, right? Again, calm down. If you think that, you should be taking it all, grading or whatever, and just putting it away. Just put it away and not even thinking about it. But too many times they're just like, oh, I got to recoup some of the funds real fast or anything else. I can't be in the black the whole time. So it is the quick flip, quick turnaround and stuff.
And I think to Alex's point, that's the great thing about the hobby, right? If like for me, from the educational lens, like there's a lot of case studies in the hobby around certain cards. When you look at Zion's prison card, think about what that card was going for when it first came out, like the base or the silver and how much people was paying for it. And I walked into one of my local hobby stores and a PSA 10 is like $30.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you think about that case study of like, when I collected and the old timers who taught me when I was coming up in the 90s, like, hey, you hold on to these cards because they're going to be worth money one day. And like, people were still prospecting, but they're not prospecting how they prospected, 40 years ago. And it's like, okay, I got this card. If this player gets hurt or if this player has 3 bad games, the market is going to dictate the price, his evaluation or her evaluation. So, for me, and again, I think it boils down to your individual preference. I collect for nostalgic reasons, and there's people who collect for monetary reasons. And if you buy a product, especially how much cards are worth now, when we were just talking before the show what certain hobby boxes go for, and you get a card and you need to recoup some funds, you're going to be more inclined to sell now. And not hold, and maybe not wait to get it graded. Let me sell it raw because it's the card that's hot now, and then it's driving everything that we see on social media. So, Alex makes a great point.
Yeah, and I think, you're talking about interesting case studies between players and individual cards. I even think that this Super Bowl is pretty interesting as well, because you have Drake May, who has had tons of sales over $10,000, a couple over $100,000, and his rookie cards, his prisms, his prism silvers, he doesn't have any, unfortunately. He doesn't have any like RPAs because I don't know if he was an exclusive Topps athlete when he was a rookie, but I know that he didn't sign any Panini autographs. So there's no rookie autographs. At least there's no licensed rookie autographs for Drake May.
One, Top still made him, but there's no licensed one yet.
Right. But what do you think? He loses the Super Bowl and does his card? Should his card drop? I would say no, because he's still a great player. He just didn't win a Super Bowl. But that's how the market goes, though.
Right.
But
exactly.
Historically, the market, it doesn't matter if you win or lose the Super Bowl. It goes in the off season and it drops anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, the football market to me sometimes doesn't make much sense. Like the best time to sell, at least from what I've seen, looking at different players' graphs, is like right before the season. Because once the season starts, it's the same thing. It's like I think it's like fantasy football. It's a fantasy football influenced why people buy cards because they get excited for a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson before the season. They go out and buy the cards. They get expensive, and then once the season starts. And again, it's almost like it doesn't matter whether they play well or not. Usually the cards end up going down midway through the season. Like usually you can buy some of them for half the price in week 12 that you could during the preseason. And then same thing.
There's a lot of good things in the comments right now.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. You're talking about is, the NFL draft happens, who they pick up to help incorporate the rest of the team, free agency, who's leaving a team and going to another team to help so that, the hype prior to the season starting. And then we have the biggest card show in the world happening right in the middle of it at the end of July, the National. So, all that hype added to it, everyone's just like, who's the hot players that are selling at the National and everything, right? So, to your point with that, it is that time frame in the summer for football is just that's when you sell, period.
Right. And I don't know, sometimes the hobby is very interesting in this way where if a player just has that stink to them, it's almost impossible for them to get it off. And Sam Darnold, I think, is unfortunately one of those players. If you look at Sam Darnold's cards versus Drake May's cards, Sam Darnold 2 years in a row with two different teams goes 14-3 in the regular season. Sam Darnold obviously makes it to the Super Bowl this year, but like even that has, his cards have increased since he's gotten this far. But again, what ends up happening after the season? Like, why do maybe people think that like, I'm just trying to think of any like NBA players that might be like this. I mean, Damian Lillard is maybe one that's like where he doesn't have, he's one of the better players in the generation, but just doesn't have the market that's there. I don't really know why necessarily.
It's the same thing with NBA cards. Like when I go to shows and I like to find a lot of Sixers cards. I've seen in many moments where like Charles Barkley cards are more expensive than Julius Erving. And I'm like, wait, Julius Erving like took us to the promised land, got us an NBA championship. He's more revered in the city, but people are paying more for Charles Barkley's cards. And I was like, why is that? Well, Charles Barkley's in the media more. He has this personality. So what's driving those things? And you can even make the argument for like Kobe Bryant versus Allen Iverson. Like, why does Allen Iverson not have a thriving market? You can say the same thing about Shaq, and you can compare Shaq to Barkley. Exactly. Why does, in many cases, like there are Barkley cards that are worth more than Shaq cards, and Shaq had a more profound impact on basketball in terms of like winning than him. So it's strange, the ebb and flow of like when you look at the market and prices and what the marketplace is saying about, Hall of Famers, veterans, current players, and across the board. And sometimes I can't understand it, and sometimes I know why, and sometimes I'll be like, yo, the market doesn't know what it's talking about.
Right.
But it is what it is.
Right. I mean, it could also have to do with, just using your example. I've looked into this example as well, Barkley versus Shaq. Like Shaq has like a ton of different rookie cards where Barkley probably doesn't have as many. So I think that does influence that individual example. I think Brady is another example where, he was a 6th-round guy, so he's not in every set. Like he only has like, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but like his contenders autos, his, Bowman chrome cards, like he doesn't have like 70 different rookie cards. So like, and I did a video on this, I think maybe yesterday or the day before, where the most expensive sales since last year's Super Bowl, the top 4 are all Tom Brady. And then number 5 was the Jaden Daniels 1-of-1 that sold in sort of that viral. There was like a viral video where I think the Commander's owner bought the card from some, I forgot, Roth Cards, maybe. I think it was on Instagram. He sold it to right. Yes, exactly. So, I think the GOAT conversation, and maybe that's what it is as well. Maybe it's just like, if you're going to be buying cards for the long term, like you have to look at who's going to be the GOAT. And it's like, if in the NBA, if you're not going to be LeBron, it's like it's almost worth just trying to either have a personal collection or sell any rookies that you want and not really hold on to them too long. And I think the market itself has shown that selling things quickly, there's probably a decent shot you'll be able to buy them back at some point, especially if the player isn't like a Luka or, you know, a Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, I suppose.
I mean, even when you look at the 96 draft class, like when you look at Ray Allen's card market, like he's a Hall of Famer. He's won multiple championships, one of the greatest shooters ever. And you can find his rookie card. You can find his rookie card for like $5, $10. And like some of his like higher, you would think like higher end 90s cards, and like, man, they're so cheap. And his card should be worth more because he put in that work. But, you know, given what prospecting looks like today, no one cares about Ray Allen's card market. You know what I mean?
Which is like, odd. Yeah. Yeah. And this conversation ends up transitioning perfectly into what our next topic is going to be. It's going to be this week that Panini, they announced that they're coming out with basketball cards this year. I think that there was potentially some speculation on if they were going to come out with unlicensed stuff. This obviously confirms that they are going to come out with them. They are coming out there, at least so far. They've announced Donruss and then Signature Series, which, like, if we look back at what Panini has done with all of their releases, these are just the first cards that end up coming out every year anyway. So we may potentially be getting like an unlicensed Prism basketball or unlicensed Contenders basketball or Select basketball. I mean, I guess we'll see. So these products are going to be a combination of the NBA and NIL. They are going to have autographs, which I know VJ Edgecombe, your Sixers guy there, Samuel, he is going to have autographs in there. So, you know, Alex, I'll ask you this question. What are your kind of overall thoughts here with Panini announcing that they are going to come out with unlicensed basketball this year?
It was a big topic, you know, this past week all over social media because everyone's comparing the two. You know, this is the first year after Topps, you know, had unlicensed basketball, and they're comparing the images and everything else to the way Topps was. Right. And I think, you know, it all depends on the angle. Look at the picture of VJ right there. You know, you can't see any logos. His hands are in the ball's in the right place and stuff like that. That just looks like a regular card because he has a jersey on. Right. You know, it's harder. It's harder to between the two. Right. Basketball and football unlicensed stuff. There's more of the way that the team's logos and stuff looks on a jersey and basketball than it is football, because usually the logo is just on the helmet. You just one little side, you won't have to see it, and it's a lot easier it comes through. But basketball's hard. You're going to see a lot of shots just like that Derek Queen right there. You know, shout out to the Terps. You got the balls in front of, you know, the actual jersey, so you can't see it. So it's going to be a little bit of combination, right? Your combination of, do you still love these products? Is it, you know, do you love these players? If you're a big VJ fan, you know, like most of Philly is, they're probably going to be a lot of love for his type of stuff. But my big thing with it, you know, we talked offline before we started. Topps came out the gate with their Topps flagships products and everything else with actual player worn jerseys. None of this, a lot of it was not just that it wasn't used in any game event or whatever. It's all been player worn event, game used or whatever, coming out the gate for even the rookies. Will Panini do the same thing? Are they hearing the crowd saying this one? And in these products, are they getting the jerseys and putting them in there? Hopefully they are.
Yeah, and Samuel, I'm actually going to ask you kind of a question off of what Brody's point here is. With Topps's first couple products, they've been pretty expensive, all things considered. Like, if you're getting a flagship product, you know, you were saying that you bought a box of flagship, and I think you said you bought it for $150 or $120, and it went up to $250, and so you got kind of lucky there with the pricing of that. The unlicensed stuff. Okay, so maybe it's sort of a two-part question. The first part is, what do you think of the unlicensed stuff? And do you think that the unlicensed stuff will affect Topps's prices? Or do you think that as Topps comes out with more products, that will eventually drop the flagship prices, maybe Topps Chrome potentially? versus, you know, if because those are the only products that are out right now.
So I don't think it will impact pricing. There was a time when I wasn't a fan of unlicensed stuff, but then I had to do some history, and I was like, wait a minute. There was a time in the 70s where Topps didn't own the license to, you know, NBA cards, and that's why players wore their jersey backwards. And you have the Wilt Chamberlain card with his name on the back, but you don't see the front of the jersey. You just see his name, Chamberlain. So just the idea of like history, and it makes me think like, you know, you got to get a little bit more creative with the design of the card. Will it impact us seeing like more in action cards, and how do you do those in action cards where it just doesn't look like a eyesore of like, man, it's just empty blank canvas on this person's jersey. But in terms of access, I think about the access lens when it comes to unlicensed product. And I say, you know what, this is an opportunity for, you know, collectors aspiring collectors or kids who want to get in the hobby and don't have that access to those higher end products or those flagship products, where now you still get the opportunity to collect basketball cards and baseball cards. So, you know, that's the lens that I'm thinking through. And like, you know, my only thing for Panini is I wasn't a fan of Topps unlicensed cards because I think they just like threw it together and it was a money grab because they wanted to get into the Wemby sweepstakes. You know, they wanted their version of the Wemby rookie card, and I just think it was a sloppy product. But I think if Panini does it right, where even though it's unlicensed and you can make it look good and it has that like nice eye appeal, and you figure out a way, like with portraits, like it's easy to do portraits, but if you figure out the way to have those in action shots where it doesn't look so awkward, you know, it's a product I'll buy. It's a product that I'll use for like a card program at my school to expose students to collecting and get them involved in collecting. Because at the end of the day, they're going to know the player name on a card, and they're not really looking at like, is it licensed or unlicensed? It's just the fact that I got my favorite player's card. So I think that's how I would package it if I'm Panini.
Yeah, and I think a big shift.
If that answers your question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I think a big shift here is that we're seeing athletes kind of be on both teams here for Topps and Panini. Like, you know, for example, the Drake May, he doesn't have any licensed rookie autos. Like, he only has Topps unlicensed rookie stuff or rookie auto stuff. He has patches that are licensed, obviously, but as we go into the NBA season, you know, for example, VJ Edgecombe, he signed with Panini, so that means he's not going to have licensed autographs and Topps, I don't think. So, you know, with this product, we're seeing Edgecombe obviously having the signature. So, Alex, I'll ask you this question: Do you think that the licensing matters as much as having an autograph on the card? Like, if you have an unlicensed rookie auto, do you think people want that more than, you know, a licensed patch or something like that?
I think, you know, Samuel's point, it depends on the collector. It depends on the person, you know. It depends on, you know, if you're a flipper out there, you know, flipping stuff and everything else. I mean, we can also use, for example, Drake May, your guy, right? He has unlicensed auto stuff with Panini. I mean, with Topps, but he has licensed stuff with Panini, but it's not autoed, right? It's not an autograph. It's like I think, and like NT and all other big products have just a patch for their RPs. They're not even an RPA because there's no auto. What price are those? Like what value is there between a Drake May auto and Topps Chrome? And that actual patch from like National Treasures that, if I'm not mistaken, I believe wasn't even player worn. You know, I think it depends on what are you do, who are you, and what are you trying to do with that card? Are you collecting it to be in your collection, or are you doing it to flip it? I think in the long run, if the player is good, if the player is great, it's not going to matter down the road. In my mind, because they'd be like, oh, was a rookie auto of his. This is when he first started. compared to that, that patch or whatever. However, these type of cards that come out there, depending on the logo and everything, the way they are and stuff, can go a long way. I mean, I know people were talking about this is wild to think. Topps doing all their unlicensed stuff, they did the way they did on purpose to make their licensed stuff look better whenever it came out. Right? Making Topps finest basketball last year was, that was some rough product, right?
Yeah,
it was ugly. It was ugly. It was so ugly.
Wait till finest comes out this year and compare the two, right? Maybe it's like, hey, we're throwing this out there to make our other stuff down the road look better. But in the long run, I think if you're a collector and you want the players, it's not going to matter. It's not. And
also, sorry, Alex. Also, too, like, I mean, this not like this is a new thing. Panini has been making unlicensed baseball product, and people have still bought it. Think about some of the biggest like LE cards that were pulled from those unlicensed products that people got graded, and we were talking about all on social media, those different parallels and short prints or whatever the case may be. So again, I think it boils down to, if you like collecting cards, you'll buy it and you're not so consumed by whether it's licensed or not. Because like I said, I have Topps basketball cards from the 70s where they didn't own the license. And I still collect those cards and I enjoy those cards. And I'm not looking like I don't see the logo. You know what I mean? So those cards are some of my like PC cards that I would never get rid of.
And then that's why this hobby in this industry is just the way it is. Like, you collect what you like. It doesn't have to be what other people like. Right. Leaf trading cards has been in this industry for so long, and they're non-licensed, all their stuff, right? To me, an auto is an auto. It doesn't matter who it is or what it's on and everything else like that. And I actually, one of my cards in my collection, I don't even think Samuel has seen this. Out of 4, you got the Logo Man, Jerry West, and Larry Bird on a Leaf card with a little acetate.
That's nice.
It's a beautiful card. Autos of both out of 4. It's a Leaf product, but this card's beautiful. I really, really enjoy it. And it depends on who you are, and collect what you like in the long
Talk about Jerry West card market. Nobody's buying a lot of his cards, and they should.
Yeah, even though he's the logo, it's
so
very
strange.
Again, sometimes it just racks my brain. Sometimes I just don't understand the industry and what, like, when a product comes out and the first card sells for, when the first Cooper Flag Topps Chrome card came out, it sold probably for like $300 or $400, and it's like. Yeah. Have these people? I don't know. I've racked it doesn't make any sense to me. The other kind of product here that I think is important that they announced, Signature Series. This one looks like AI, like you were saying, Samuel earlier. We got another VJ Edgecomb. This is, a nice patch. If this is the patch they got in there, I'm pretty excited for those ones. But I think the big announcement here in this product is that they're going to have kabooms. I don't know if the checklist has been announced yet. I don't think it has, but there are going to be unlicensed kabooms coming out of Signature Series. I forget what they came out of basketball before Signature Series. I don't remember the product they came out with, but they are coming out with kabooms, and I think this is a good example of if you were to ask me whether this card was licensed or unlicensed, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. So and I think that the last year's NFL kabooms showed that you can do the artistic style with these types of cards. And when you do the artistic style, you pretty much can make it look however you want. Yeah. Obviously, they're using probably an image as an example here. But like for this one, if you were to ask me again, like if this was licensed or not, I wouldn't be able to tell. So, and Samuel, I think you brought up another great point about like, in the 70s, there really weren't, the licensing wasn't as important for these types of products. So, like, do you think that a kaboom here, for example, if they kind of go with this style where you can't really tell that, in 10, 15 years, people are just not going to care whether it was or was not licensed?
I don't think people would care because also, too, name recognition. People like kabooms, right? And whatever that signature subset is, people are going to flock to it and buy it simply for the fact that like I have an opportunity to pull a kaboom. But I do want to acknowledge what Foul Ball said. He said no real collectors in baseball collect Panini, and like I understand where he's coming from, but my only gripe with him is like, what's your definition of a real collector? Because I don't know what that means. Like, if you collect something and you care about it, you're a real collector, whether it's licensed or unlicensed. It's the fact that you collect cards and you like cards. So I just had to put that out there.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's no such thing as a real collector just because you collect Panini baseball cards. That's what you like. You collect it.
Right. And I mean, I think Panini has done a good job. And granted, they may not be necessarily game worn or play worn patches, but they've done a fine job at coming out with like RPAs for baseball that are unlicensed. So, I mean, I think that's one of the things I'm maybe most excited for is that hopefully, you know, National Treasures this year, for example, all those players are going to, like, most of the rookies, other than I think Cam Ward, are going to have RPAs. And that's one of the first times we've seen this. And I get we're going back to football a little bit here, but with basketball too, with football specifically, the past 3 or 4 draft classes, we have not had contenders autographs for good rookies. We haven't had National Treasures RPAs. And those were the cards that back in 2020, 2021, that era where like everyone was so excited for those. So I think if Panini can figure out how to do the patch autograph rookies maybe in a way that Topps hasn't figured out potentially, like that would be a good thing. You know, Alex, I'll ask you this question here. Do you think that do you think that an RPA, licensed or unlicensed, and maybe it's a similar question what I asked you before, but like with the RPA, do you think it matters more of it being licensed, or do you think it matters more if the patch was you know, used by the player, or if it's, you know, what Panini has done where it's just, you know, they pull a jersey off of Dick's Sporting Goods rack and they put one of those patches in there?
So I'm going to go back to like what Sam was saying, not going after him, but what Foul Ball just wrote. He said flippers collect Panini. I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of those, you know, flippers that come around, try to buy out tables and stuff, they don't want unlicensed Panini. They're not looking for that. The flippers are not collecting Panini. I'm going to tell you that right now. That type of stuff was meant for the collectors, right? It is meant to get those RPAs out there under the flawless of National Treasures and everything because of the design, making it look, you know, nice and everything else like that. I think in the long run, when you look at these down the road, the RPAs of unlicensed Panini for baseball or whatever it is and everything, same as Topps, I think they'll hold value down the road. I think it's like just quick, fast, and like right now and in the industry now won't hold as much value as, you know, 10, 15, 20 years from now, if that player gets to that status of being a Hall of Fame player, you know, doing whatever it is, that will hold the more value. Because we would say it right now, if Tom Brady had which he does, there is unlicensed stuff that's out there, you know, for his rookies and stuff, still hold value. Seriously, it all depends on the player. It depends on the player and the collectability of them. So yeah, I think short term, everyone talking about no licensed here, this and that. That licensing discussion is always talked about, and you know, and Leaf pushes out. I mean, I know Samuel talked about it earlier. The Boozer, you know, twins, they're Leaf exclusive athletes. You will not see any rookies from Topps autos in products because they are Leaf exclusive athletes. Did you know that, Samuel?
No, I did not know that.
Yep. So actually I think the multi-sport product that's getting ready to come out are game use jersey autos of the Boozer twins inside that product. So yeah, I think it all boils back down to what type of collector you are. Are you searching for that? Is that your guy? And if it is, does what they're wearing matter? Seriously? Like you want to collect that player.
And to your point, Alex, something I want to add, like, what is your like when people say value, like what is your definition of value? Like I know a lot of people who collect cards and their value is nostalgic. Their value is this card is connected to a memory. This card is connected to a moment. You know, this card is something I had as a kid, and it may be a junk wax card, and I found it today, 30 years later, but it does something for me. So we also got to rethink, like, what's the definition of value? Is it monetary or is it a feeling you bring? You know, I have some Panini baseball cards in my collection that I pulled and like, yeah, I know they're not worth much in terms of monetary value, but there's some cool looking cards that I love. And whenever I go through my bins right behind me and I want to look at some of those baseball cards, those nostalgic moments come back from when I first opened those packs and when I got back in the hobby. And I was just trying to find stuff to buy because it was at a time where you couldn't find anything to buy.
Right.
You know, so that value of nostalgia came for me through those moments. And it took me back in time when I was first collecting baseball cards as a kid. So I think we just gotta we gotta have a open mind when it comes to cards, whether it's something that can make you money if you're buying it, or whether it's like, you know what, it might be a kid walking through that show and says, that is my favorite player and I love that player. And now I have the opportunity to get that card and my parent can actually afford it.
Right.
You know, so
yeah, and I think I think all the points you guys are making are phenomenal about value and price and everything. Because, you know, for me, one of my favorite cards that I own was like a Ronaldinho, a Brazilian soccer player who back in the day was like, he was Messi and Ronaldo before Messi and Ronaldo. He kind of had a weird career where it didn't really, the end of his career was not as good as the beginning of his career, but he has a card from like this weird, like, world set that came out in 2000, and it's one of his earlier cards. And I had an eBay listing, or had an eBay search when I knew about the card, and it finally popped up one day, and I bought it for it was like $20 or $30 at the time, and I got it graded, and I was like, this is one of my favorite cards. And it's like, I don't really necessarily care about the value. Like, there are other Ronaldinho cards that I bought that I got graded that I want to sell, but you know, it comes down to what you think, or it comes down to how you feel about the card. I think ultimately, you know, there are so many different ways to enjoy the industry, whether it's, you know, for me, I enjoy making content about the industry. I'm not, you know, I buy boxes from Walmart, but that's like, you know, as far as I go sometimes of buying and selling stuff. I mean, usually I very rare. I don't think I sold a card necessarily in 2025. So it's like, I have a ton of stuff that I could sell. It's just like, you know, for me, I like holding on to it. So it really kind of comes down to all that type of stuff. Yeah. So do you guys have any kind of final thoughts here? I mean, I'm going to go around the panel one more time. We're up here at the top of the hour. I'll start with you, Samuel. Any final thoughts here for the show?
My final thought, there's no such thing as a real collector. If you care about cardboard and you collect it and you doing it in your own authentic way, you are a real collector. And no one can distinguish or determine that otherwise. So that's my hot take. I feel some type of way when I hear people say stuff like that because, you know, we are a community, right? I've spent so much time with Alex over the past couple of years, and it was a time where I didn't even know him. And we've got to know each other, and we call each other brothers, and we support each other in so many ways. And, you know, that's what the hobby is all about. So there's never going to be a day when I say, you know what, Alex, just because you collect, you know, your favorite, you know, player, you're not a real collector and all those cards are cheap. No, he's a real collector because he stands by that. And like, that's his guy. He loves those cards. So I just think we need to do a better job of like seeing each other more and not devaluing people because they don't have a certain brand or a certain type of card. The fact that you love that card, I want to know the story behind it. And I want to know more about it and about you.
And then, you know, one other question for you, Samuel, where can they find you, stuff that you got coming up? What do you got planned or anything you want to shout out here at the end of the show?
Yeah. So and Alex knows this, the big thing that I'm working on right now, you know, I'm an educator by day. Alex calls me the hobby principal. I don't think I deserve that title.
Yes.
But I am working on a sports card curriculum through the national. It's a youth collectors initiative, and we did a pre-launch last year through the Curtis Grandison organization with students from Chicago, and we're moving into year 2 of it. And I'm writing a curriculum, and it's a fun curriculum because it focuses on, you know, being an entrepreneur, understanding the industry, building community. And we're doing a lot of cool things with that. And Alex, you know, got to witness the immersion program that we ran at the 45th National in Chicago, you know, with kids from a little village who've never experienced cards, but they fell in love with cards from that day and got to meet a lot of cool people. So that's the big thing that I'm working on. You can find me on Instagram as the Sports Card Collector, where I just post my content about my cards and tell stories, and then also just post content about the various card shows that I go to and support, because me and Alex, we work at a lot of card shows.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate the shout out. And I mean, that's phenomenal work you're doing there with that organization. We saw each other. I think maybe that was the first time we met at the National, but
yes.
I saw you, and you were so nice and did a video that was super awesome. And so Alex, same kind of 2 questions here. What are your final thoughts? And then, give yourself a shout out, let everybody know what you got going on coming up.
Again, I said it earlier, collect what you like. You don't have to worry about what other people are collecting. Collect what you like, and you'll never go wrong. One of the things I want to make sure I always end, podcasts and everything else, and make sure everyone knows that make sure you wake up tomorrow, right? Yep. It doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing out there. Someone out there wants you to wake up tomorrow, right? If you're having hard times, message someone, call someone, talk to someone. You can find me anywhere on Instagram, same Army ATC 22. My line is open. It doesn't matter. I check my request if I'm not following you at least once every few days, and then I respond to pretty much everybody. Because I'm a big advocate for mental health. My aspect, Samuel's doing that with the curriculum. My aspect because I work with the National too, is mental health in this hobby. I got a few things coming out with it that's going to be doing with the National. So tune into my Instagram and you'll be able to see the stuff and everything else that we are doing. But again, this hobby can be overwhelming sometimes, and sometimes you just need to take a break from it. Do it. Your mental health goes a long way as an advocate for veterans and everything else with PTSD and everything else. Right? It's big in my heart. Like I said, find me on all socials, Army ATC 22. I'm doing short form there. I am waiting to finish signing I don't know if you know this, Adam, but I'm signing my contract with Sports Card Nonsense. I'm going to be seeing some stuff on with their network also down the road. It's going to be fun. This year started off with a bang, and I can't wait to continue it. So let's have some fun.
Nice. Yeah, love that. My message is kind of similar. I try to end all the shows with this one. It's just like, there's new people coming into this industry all the time. And whether someone has been in this industry for 20 years or whether they've been in it for 20 days, their collection is what they want. And it doesn't really matter. And people are going to have questions. My whole goal in this industry was to answer questions that when I was getting into the industry, I saw no answers to. So that's why I like making content that's informational, that's news related. So all of those things, like if somebody is asking a question in the comments, whether it's in an Instagram post or on Twitter or whatever, they may just not know. It's not that they are trying to be antagonistic or anything like that. They may just not know. So if somebody is asking a question and the answer, give them the answer. They'll probably appreciate it. And Alex was saying, like, check out Sports Cards Nonsense. That's one of the places where I create most of my content, short form stuff, short form videos, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all those places. We will be back here for episode. Again, I don't remember what last week's episode was, and it says episode 33 in the title. So it's probably it might be episode 340, it might be episode 339, who knows? But we'll be back here on For Collectors next Saturday. If you're sick of me, that's I will not be the host. I was the host 2 weeks in a row here, so I won't be the host next week.
No, we love you, Adam. We love you, man. Yeah, we love you.
So yeah, make sure you come back here to the For Collectors, and if you're watching this still, make sure you like and subscribe. Appreciate everybody in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yes, the music.